And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the MindCep Podcast. This is your host, Alex Muir, helping you flex your mind, body, and soul. Today's episode 116. We're having back on three-peat guest, David A. Specht, author of Old Dogs, New Tricks 2.0, podcast host, Florida Gators fan, you name it, he's back. David, thanks so much for coming back to the show.
Thanks. Hey, Alex, I'm so stoked to be here. With that introduction, I feel like, maybe the subject matter ought to be overcoming adversity as the Florida Gators aren't exactly not knocking down championships as of late. So, but again, I'm on for the third time. I'm out of focus on the camera, which is amazing to me. Gotta love technology, but I'm super stoked to be here because you and I have a lot of similarities in our mindset, similarities in what we want to do with what we do. And so, I'm super excited to be here, and I will try not to be distracted by the camera, but I am going to mess with it for a second.
No, totally. And one area that I wanted to talk about, Dave, since last time we were chatting before this interview was like when you're trying to narrow down what your coach, and when you're coaching, you were talking is narrowing down into one word or a sentence of like, what do you do, and how do you help people, and how do you bring what you do to the world?
It's a tough question. I mean, let's be honest. We are multifaceted individuals, and we are constantly evolving and learning. So, if you were to ask me 10 years ago, who am I? What do I do? I'm going to tell you, I own a newspaper, and I try to impact my community through the news, and I try to help my community through community groups like, joining a social club or whatever to be able to bring that influence to people. If you were to ask me the same question 5 years ago, I would tell you I'm a health coach because I lost 120 pounds and I really believe in what I'm doing. And I've learned key tools to help other people do what I did. And you asked me today, okay, what is it you do, David? Well, the truth of the matter is I help people wherever they need help. I believe that there are certain lanes that stick out more than others in everybody's journey. For me, I believe that my gifting is to be able to help somebody take a bigger, broader look at a situation or an instance or an interaction. I also believe that there is a big gap in leadership right now, that there's like this whole, let's blame everything because of a generation, or let's blame everything because of, work from home, or let's blame it. And there's this lack of taking responsibility, being a leader, honing leadership skills. And that's one of the things that I've known is I let the market kind of dictate what I can do, what gaps I can fill. And as of, right now, and I see this for the foreseeable future, is this lack of leadership that people don't know how to interact. They don't know how to lead others. They don't know how to intrinsically validate people to where they're not just working for a paycheck, but they're working for a cause. And so all of this comes into play, and which leads right up to what you and I have been talking about. And that is, how do you answer that question? And the truth of the matter is you have to, and this is a long answer to a short question, but to be able to do what we say in the business as the elevator pitch is you have to recognize where you are. If you're at a conference of entrepreneurs, guess what? Your elevator pitch is going to be, I help other entrepreneurs do this, or I believe that entrepreneurs need this in their life, and I believe that I'm the most qualified to do it. If you're in a room full of people if you're at the gym, you're going to be like, I help people transform their lives and help them see things from a different perspective, to where they don't say, I've got to go to the gym. I get to go to the gym. So again, it's the same principles, but the applications and the gaps that they can help are different depending on the situation you're in.
Yeah, because you got to adapt your personal mission statement based on the environment that you're in. And the timing. Yeah, because I noticed that too. Because like when people have asked me about that, right? Like, I'm like insurance agent by day, podcast host by night, kind of a thing, right? And then everything, and then in between that, I'm like a biohacker, right? I love to experiment. I love to show people, like, let me be the guinea pig, and then I can experiment for you if I like for fasting or nutrition or just these different modalities on how to maximize your life in different ways, right? So I'm still trying to refine that as well. But yeah, but like putting it into one word is it, like you said, it's constantly evolving and it takes time.
Well, and the great Gary Vaynerchuk, and I won't use the language that he uses on a regular basis, but he says, for every good idea that in the world, there's a marketer out there waiting to F it up. And what they mean is they just put it out there so much that the uniqueness of the idea or the phrase or the word. 5 years ago, there was no such thing as a life coach, a business coach, a health coach. But now the word coach has been used so many times. Is what I do coaching? Absolutely. I coach people all the time. But if I say I'm a coach, well, then you get the blank stare, right? Oh, it's another one of those. I bet he's part of a pyramid scheme. They call them all coaches over there. So, refining the word may be, like you said, an evolving process depending on what time frame you're in. Do I sound better as a coach? Do I sound better as a transformational consultant? Do I say, they're all the same, different iterations of the same set of principles.
Yeah.
So wherever I'm at and wherever you're at, when somebody asks you a question, maybe the answer is, look, before I tell you what I do, let me tell you what I believe.
Yeah.
And just like I just did with you a few minutes ago, I believe that there is a gap of leadership right now. I believe that one of the very best places to start is with your own self, your personal habits, your personal consistencies, your personal health. And that once you've begun to get traction in that area of your life, you want to take on other areas. And oh, by the way, once you start seeing victory and you start seeing success, you want to help others. I mean, that's just our nature. If I have an answer for your question, I want to give you that answer. So that's what I believe. Now, what's your question? And maybe I can help you figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the person that's asking the question, it's like learning how to ask better questions, and then you learn to get better answers to those questions, which will give you. I'm rereading this book. You might have heard of it. It's by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. It's called The One Thing. Because something that I've had the hardest time with in my life is doing too much. Because when life gets really hard, my way of coping is I tackle on all these projects that I'm really passionate about, like passion projects, but I do it to the point of it's too much. And then it makes me less present. So my thing is I need to focus on one thing at a time because I can get really distracted. So what do you say to, people in the audience or listeners and your audience as well? Like, how do you kind of do the domino effect of like one task or one project at a time and then move on to the next thing?
So, the beauty of what we're talking about is we are all a work in progress. What I'm about to tell you is not the end all be all for doing this. But you're absolutely right. I read there's a book out there called The Portfolio Life, and they basically, peel the curtain back to say it's okay to have skills and developed in multiple areas. You can be a graphic designer, but also be in leadership development, but also have an accounting mind. It's okay. It's not one or the other. But when you're that type of individual, as you just said, how do you get the things done? How do you do the important things? And so for me, one of the very best examples that I've ever heard, and I don't know if you've heard of the rocks in a jar example, but the story goes like this. A professor was in front of his class, science professor, I guess, because he had a big beaker. And he had a box of rocks, a box of pebbles, and a box of sand. And he puts the rocks all in there, and he puts as many as he can fit into this thing. And he asks the class, is the glass full? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Well, then he takes the pebbles and he starts pouring the pebbles in, and they start filling up the nooks and crannies around the big rocks. And he said, now is the glass full? And they're like, oh yeah, it's full. Well, then he grabs the sand and he finds out that the sand is all, fills in other nooks and crannies. So what we think is full, many times it's just prioritization. In this example, the big rocks are that I have to do things, the things that pay the bills, the things that improve me, the things that really move the needle in my life. The pebbles are those secondary things. They're the nice to do, but don't have to do today. And then the sand is the whatever else I can fit into my schedule. So if you start the day with a And I tell people all the time, if it's not on my Google Calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If you start the day with your rocks on your Google Calendar and literally block out the time. And let's be honest, we're a couple guys here. Spending time with your wife should be a rock in your schedule, even if you have to schedule it on Google.
Yeah.
So if you do those things, you're able to pivot, because there's no such thing as multitasking. I don't know if you know that or not. There's no such thing as multitasking.
No one can do it. No one can do it.
It's called switch tasking.
Yeah.
I do this really intensely right now, and then I switch over to this really intensely right now, and then I switch over to this. But you can switch a whole lot easier if it's scheduled. Now, our free spirits out there that like to go with the flow and all that, I get that. But can I tell you that structure will be your friend to act more freely? Because then you don't have the hanging over your head list of items that go undone because you're going with the flow. You can actually utilize structure of rocks in your schedule to help you have more free time to go with the flow.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer. Again, it may change in 2 years, but right now that's my answer.
And I think actually you did do a post about this on your social. Yeah. The pebbles and prioritization and urgency of most vital tasks, most vital projects that you're trying to tackle. I think I remember that now. Yeah. So that's why I heard it.
And for the entrepreneur, that's the biggest challenge for us is prioritizing what has to be done today, because unless there's a hard and fast deadline, like you have to have the book to the publisher by Friday at 5, you can always put off that action that will help you, especially if it's your side hustle. And so making the rocks in your schedule then puts you in the mindset of, okay, when this notification goes off on my phone or my computer, it's time to get in that mindset.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like that. Because that's I feel like that's a lot of people's challenge nowadays, especially, is focus, like attention. We have an attention deficit, and we gotta rehone how to focus, even if it's in small increments to be able to. And then, but I love the Google Calendar thing. That's what I do, and I don't always stick to it, but it helps me keep the structure when there's not as much clarity, and I need to get something done once it's in there, especially podcast interviews, right?
Yes,
interview, so I'm going to be there no matter what. And if the guest decides, there's something like that came up, I'm like, I have it baked into my schedule, right? As soon as something's booked. So.
Right. Well, and that's the biggest thing is it's just like doing a budget. Even if it fails, it's better than not doing one. Even if the schedule doesn't work out, it's better than going without doing a schedule, because without doing one, it's never going to work out. But when you do one, you have the opportunity to at least hit some of the priorities, if not all of them.
Yeah. And what would you say to some people maybe listening that have been experiencing, some major setbacks or failures? And for yourself, how have you bounced back from those when, let's say, your ego's been bruised and battered and you're like, man, goddamn, like I need to go back, reevaluate. I need to re-strategize. Like, how did you bounce back so you're not sitting and maybe dwelling on it, or to get back to your goal, to get back to your vision?
So I think there are two vitally important aspects of this. The first one is easy. The second one's hard. They're both simple, but the first one's easy. The second one's hard. The first one is understanding the nature of life, that time doesn't stop. Tom Hanks, I saw him in an interview with Chris Pratt and maybe Denzel Washington. They're all sitting around the table, and he said, "You know what the most powerful phrase that I ever learned in my adult life is?" And they're like, "No, what?" He goes, "This too shall pass." He said, "Things going well, this too shall pass. Things, going off the rails, this too shall pass." And he said it was very liberating to understand that no matter what scenario you're in, what state you're in, it's never permanent, that there's always the opportunity to come out of it. That's the easy part, understanding that. Now, the hard part, circles matter. So we, meaning people like me, old guys, who are Gen X, again, I'm not a big broad brusher, but in this case, it might work. We don't talk about things, right? We're just nose to the grindstone, work our way through it, work our way out of it, whatever it takes. But the truth of the matter is, that can be a very lonely existence.
Yeah.
And so community really, really matters in these areas, especially when you're down. So creating a scenario or a circle that is safe and trustworthy. Now, safe does not mean they're just like pat you on the back. Oh, I'm so sorry, Dave. I'm so sorry you're going through that. No, I mean the people that jerk the slack out of you too, but
Yeah.
that you know the discussion will not go outside the circle.
Yeah.
When you can have a circle like that, even if all you're doing is venting once in a while to help get your mind clear, because you bottle it all up in here, it's going to come out at some
Yeah.
point or another, and it never comes out at an opportune moment. It comes out at the worst possible time.
Yeah, always.
So being able to share that with a coach or a community or both really is a big game changer, and you'll find that from pretty much any successful person that that you'll look at in this day and age. Is they'll tell you the value of the mastermind, the value of the tight circle. That makes all of the difference. So when you have a setback, and good Lord, I've had enough setbacks to people would not fault me at all for throwing my hands up and saying, I'm done. Don't want to do any of it anymore. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is you do have to move on, because this too shall pass. If you have the right circle, they'll encourage you. And maybe the third one, maybe I need three here. The third thing is you got to have a purpose beyond the predicament.
Yeah.
You've got to have something greater that you're working towards, so that that you're in, yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I'm having to pivot and revamp and rethink and redo, but it doesn't change where I want to head. So let me change. Let me get there. Let me keep pushing through to get there. And now that I have this circle of support, now that I have this coach, now that I understand that where I'm at right now is not permanent, now I can move forward.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more like easier to handle when you've got that like that tight knit circle, and like they talk about like in the books, like your 5 closest friends and stuff like that. You want to keep those people close, right? The ones that motivate you, the ones like you said, they don't kiss your ass. They're like, no, you got this, but you got to revamp, you got to rethink things, re-strategize.
Back before COVID, there was, and they've come back a little bit, but trade organizations used to have conventions every year, whether it was the newspapers or whether it was fitness entities, whatever it is, and you would come together once a year, once a quarter, whatever, and you saw people on the stage, but most of the stuff that happened that was really cool happened like in the bar. Everybody's hanging out in the lounge, they're talking, and they're telling war stories. They're talking about how this advertiser or that subject of that story or this, that, and the other, all this, the pushback they got or the rejection they got. And what it did was it allowed you to understand that you weren't the only one that had to deal with these types of problems, that people that do what you do deal with the same problems you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And we lost some of that when we quit coming together. That's why I keep saying these communities are vitally important, where you have an actual set time to get together, come together and meet, come together and share, whether it's in person or through a screen. I'm a bigger fan of in person, but through a screen can work. We've proved it with our community. So, but those are the things that are really going to help us move forward. And we've lost a sense of that, I believe, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I have noticed, like, when I've been looking at your posts and stuff, you do a lot of like like the Kiwanis. Yeah. Kiwanis organization, like a bunch of volunteer work, and you're really part of, like, you're really embedded in your community that you work and live in. Have you found that, being more involved, have you gotten more involved in these organizations, also because of like what you've been putting through on your socials and like your content and how you create? Have you found that there's been a connection between like people being able to see you as well, be like, oh, I saw you on your socials and I read your book, and then you meet them? Have you noticed that, like has there been a connection there? Or
it's been more the opposite, to be honest with you. Like, so to utilize Kiwanis as an example, I kind of backed into Kiwanis. I had a buddy here who he and I try to do some business together. We're friends, one of those people that you can just talk to anything. And he calls me up one day and he says, "Hey, David, they're looking at standing up a Kiwanis club over here in this neighboring town, and there'll be a lot of people that you can meet. But I'm 2 years living here, and and I don't really have much of a local circle.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go check it out. So we go, and the regional director lady, whatever, yeah, she's like, I'm introducing myself, and she's like, "Oh, you're here to join," and I'm like,
Oh.
so in that moment, it's
gosh.
like, yeah, I guess I am. So,
Oh my
so that's
gosh.
kind of how it all came to pass.
Right.
Now, the progression from that was nobody knows who I am.
Yeah.
I joined this club where I have to meet literally everybody.
Yeah.
And then the question, the elevator pitch, David, what do you do? And that is what led people to adding me on Facebook,
Yeah.
buying my book,
Yeah.
being exposed to my content. It was almost, you think the content leads to the connection, but really the connection led to the content in this situation. And I think that happens more often than we want to give credit for, right?
Yeah.
Our mutual buddy Omar, he made a very valid and poignant point about writing a book. And I've kept it with me forever. He said, look, unless you're Barack Obama, you're never going to make $1 million with a book. Okay. You're just not.
Yeah.
Your book is your business card on steroids. It's ways for people to stalk you and find out what you're all about and find out how you can help them without them literally having to sit down with you. Once you understand that, then the writing the book is the easy part. And he was right. I mean, to go back to the Kiwanis example, the president of the club, she texted me the other day and she was just like, "Hey, I bought your book. It's amazing. I love it. Great job." And I'm like, the relationship led to the sale.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's the sales all together, right? The relationship leads to the sale, not the sale leads to the relationship. And I think a lot of us have gotten it backwards.
Yeah. I think we've a lot, society in general has been doing it backwards. And and the thing that drives me insane is in my career, I'm it's been all finance throughout my 20s and stuff like that, banking and then to insurance. And the thing is, they say that they want you to build the relationship, but the focus for the organization is all on sales. And then that dilutes my ability to build the relationship because I still have this massive target I have to hit while building the relationship. So the way that they do it is to completely backwards. It should be, like you said, the total opposite. Focus on the relationship, the business will come. But that's not the way they do it. The emphasis on how they teach their salespeople is it's all they want the relationship, but in order to get it every month, you have to hit this target. And if you don't hit it,
I know.
You're out.
And every sales organization is about that way, right? So, I just taught my sales team about a week ago. We always hear in the sales circles, people do business with people they like, know, and trust.
Yeah.
That's the big three, right? Do they like you? Do they trust you?
Yeah.
But it's also a process.
Yeah.
They start off by liking you. Then once you build a little bit further, they begin to know you. And then you can move on to the trust factor. And it's then when your recommendations come that they don't fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And in the finance world, there are so many, and I don't mean to, get in your wheelhouse, but there's so many great products that will help so many individuals, regardless of where they are on their finance journey.
Yeah.
I mean, there was things I didn't know about until I met a fella who built a relationship with me. We started talking. And he's like, "David, at your age, losses in the market are very detrimental to what you're wanting to do. Let's look at, because risk tolerance, again, I don't want to get into your world because your world, I don't. But the thing is he took the time, even though he has his higher ups, telling him about his quotas, he took the time to help me navigate the relationship and then have enough knowledge to make an informed decision. And that's not what we do. No. If you scroll TikTok or whatever right now, they're all wanting you to buy, it doesn't matter if they want you to buy the latest scrub brush or pheromone induced colognes but it's always, you got to do it now. You got to do it now. This, we only have 15 more left at this price, or this price will go away tomorrow. And it's like, I don't trust you. No. Well, even at $9.99, I don't want to buy it because I may be putting gasoline on my skin. I don't know what you are. So we in the relationship business, and it doesn't matter. I had a mentor one time say, "Look, everyone is in sales all the time.
Yeah.
no matter who you are, and your number one product is yourself.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, whether you're a doctor, you're a podcast host, you're in finance, you're a newspaper guy, you're a health coach, whatever it is, at some point you're selling yourself. You're selling your trustworthiness, you're selling your knowledge, your skill, your ability to solve somebody's problem. And while you may have the solution, you could have the cure for cancer, but if they don't trust you, if you haven't taken the time to build, or your brand, they can trust your brand over you.
Right.
New York Life people, they know who New York Life is. They may not know Bob from New York Life, but they know who New York Life is. The same goes true. Then you got the flip turn. You know who John Maxwell is, but I don't have to have a relationship with John Maxwell to buy one of his books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this idea of trust factor and being able to take the time for the lifetime value of a client or a customer or helping somebody, it's not for the faint of heart, because like you and I have both said, there's the pay the bills hustle, which is what you do every day. And then there's the passion hustle, which is your impact that you want to make in the world. But you have to still do the pay the bills hustle with with all of your effort.
Yeah.
Until the passion part, begins to overcome that. And so for me, that's why I say that there's this gap in leadership right now, is because nobody understands that. They think, well, I'll give the minimum at my job because I'm going to make content all night tonight. And you know what? If I can't keep my eyes open tomorrow morning at my job because I stayed up all night making content, oh, well, so be it. And it's like, no, you don't get that. It's got to be a flip flop. You've got to give the very best you can where you're at and where you've been planted while you work on the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many people got it backwards. I've had employees that, you can't find them with a search warrant because they overslept, and come to find out they spent all night, on Twitch doing, playing video games, trying to build a Twitch following. So, I mean, it's just, we have got it all backwards as a society. And I believe that falls squarely on the shoulders of our leadership, because we have not been good leaders to people for an extended period of time.
Yeah. And like, I noticed that too. Like, there's definitely been like a lot more challenges with leadership. And just more, like the communication, right? Like it's just like a lot of office environments and stuff that the culture in there is just it's not the greatest, right? People don't talk, or there's no communication at all, or the communication that is had is not positive, right? There's like, you can always tell people like where they need to work, what they need to work on, but it's how you deliver that. Is the delivery is key. And I've noticed that the way that a lot of leadership delivers that message is like, it can be detrimental, right? The way that they deliver it.
Well, not everybody's a type 1 personality. You know what I mean? And so you can't expect to go, and that's the mistake we make. And this could go for relationships too, between spouses. And that is, you try to handle situations or meet needs in the manner that you would want your situations handled and your needs met. Yeah. But that's not necessarily the way the person on the other end of whatever you're doing needs.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to dive deep enough to find out, okay, if I jerk the slack out of this individual and come down on them, are they going to react positively, pull themselves up by the bootstraps and perform better? Or are they going to go into a tailspin? And if they're the type to go into a tailspin, why is it that they go into a tailspin? Okay. And what is their approach to that? Because this situation definitely needs to be handled, and we need to improve through this situation. So what is the very best way that I can address it to the person in the manner which they can receive it? And, I've made more mistakes in leadership than a lot of people have pairs of shoes. I mean, it's just, it's nuts how many times I did it wrong. But the beauty of me doing it wrong so many times is that I've learned a lot of lessons that I can help somebody else not do it wrong as they're moving forward. I mean, there's certain principles: praise in public, criticize in private.
Yeah.
Never reply all to emails. Understand what BCC is versus CC. Whatever. Certain tools. But the truth of the matter is, do you have a heart for leadership? Do you have a heart to want to make that part. Because here's another little phrase. Again, I wish I coined them all, but I'm not nearly that smart. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, it takes a team.
Yeah.
But a team will only go as far as the leader inspires them to go.
Yeah.
And you can crack a whip, but it only goes so far. You've got to do what you've got to do. And as people, as we see this, the revolution of the entrepreneur, the problem with entrepreneurship is that we learned to rely on ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. When we hit that inflection point of scaling, and we now have to lead a team of people to accomplish what we've been doing by ourselves, but accomplishing it at scale, we are just lost because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to lead people. And oh, by the way, they're not going to do it exactly the way we would have done it, but yet it's not wrong. So how do we navigate that when our gut instinct is to just push them out of the way and go do it ourselves because we're the best at what we do? We know ourselves that well. Oh, I'm the greatest. Truth of the matter is, you're right. Nobody's going to do it the way you do it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
And if you want to go far, and if you want to go far at scale,
you need a team.
Then you have to learn leadership principles, leadership skills, leadership mindsets. It's like, hey, 80% of what I wanted or how I wanted it is good enough to move forward.
Yeah. Like good is better than perfect. And again, it takes the team to build the vision, right? Once get to that next level.
Perfect is never attainable. So let's just agree that we're never going to reach perfect. So where's the best level of progress to reach that we can expect out of our team? And that, to me, that is the impetus of being a great leader, is recognizing the strengths and weaknesses of those members of your team or those departments of your team if you're in a bigger organization, and then being able to maximize those to help you reach the goals that have been set.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then where do you see kind of like your vision for the future? Let's say next 5 years, or maybe even just 2 to 3 years, because I know like things can change so quickly. Of like where you see your vision for your business and your brand. And
well, I will say this, and again, I'm giving a long answer to a short question, and you know that about me, so we're cool with it.
Yeah.
I have to take the lessons of the last 5 years to help me project the next 5 years. 5 years ago, when I lost my weight and I got really on fire for helping people do the same, I thought that was going to be the thing that would take care of us and the impact that we can make in this world, by large numbers, both in numbers of people served and numbers of dollars earned. But then it didn't happen. The outside forces created shortcuts, to where it's like, hey, you could go get semaglutide and begin to lose weight, and you're not going to have to change your lifestyle habits that much. The drugs will help you with that. The price of eggs has tripled this week, and we don't know why. And so all of these outside forces began to erode what we were trying to do in the health coaching arena. Again, it wasn't that what we were doing wasn't working. It just wasn't as easy as what was being marketed out there. So recognizing that, hey, and you and I have talked about this, the local news business, it's got if it's not an expiration date, it's certainly a smaller than it ever was industry. And so recognizing this, I'm like, okay, project 5 years from now. Is there still going to be a leadership gap that I can fill? Probably, but it's going to look a little bit different than it looks today because we don't know what's coming down the pike. I do know this. I believe that I have a unique set of skills, to go with Liam Neeson, that will help somebody see things differently, that will help them move up in their leadership. I have experiences that I can bring to the table to make somebody feel seen and heard and understood. And so I'm always going to be in the mindset of what can I do to help somebody be better at whatever it is they want to accomplish. If you want to improve your health, if I don't have the answer, I'm definitely going to have a partner or somebody that can help. If it's in the area of leadership, I've partnered with somebody to create an entire leadership institute where we not only teach lessons, but we do have masterminds and we do bring in outside voices and we do have that safe circle where those leaders can come in and say, man, I dealt with this at work today. Have any of y'all dealt with it? And we can come in and rally with each other. So I believe that it's going to be a constantly evolving thing, but there's always going to be a need for as long as there's humans leading other humans, there's always going to be a need for leadership training. And I believe that I can bring that to a lot of people. So yeah, that's where I see me in 5 years. Is it going to look like it does today where I'm on podcasts and doing, content reels with captions and goofy things? Probably not, because that all transpired within the last 2 years. So what's the next 2 years look like? I don't know. It may be a scenario where I'm in front of a green screen and I'm in a room full of virtual people that are all, listening to every word I have to say when I'm teaching a leadership subject. I don't know. Yeah. All I know is the principles never change. Methods of delivery do.
Yeah.
So I'll always be teaching these principles, but my methods of delivery and my anecdotes to illustrate it will probably change.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like differences in the medium over time, because there could be new mediums that arise that might help with the delivery better.
When you think about Logan Paul, think about this now. Logan Paul made not the majority, but the initial fortune on Vine.
Yeah.
And Vine doesn't even exist anymore for the most part. But Vine and TikTok are very close cousins in the short form video. But the thing was, what's the next thing going to be? Yeah. What's the next thing after that going to be? What's the next thing after that going to be? So I think it's hilarious that in social media, those of us in the leadership and business spaces have gone full circle back to LinkedIn. Now it's like, oh, you must be on LinkedIn. It's like, well, that was what we said 5 years ago. Then it went away and like you had to be on Snapchat and all these other things. Now it's like, no, get back to LinkedIn. That's the only one that's even serious. And it's like, okay, so yeah, what I do is not going to change, but my methods of delivery or where I hang out to get the voice heard may.
Yeah. No, I like that. And like, what are you most excited about for the future? I know that you and Omar were working on that personal development, like educational site. So to bring like leadership skills and like just again, personal transformation, making people better mentally, physically. How's that been going? And is that like a kind of like the main focus of your what you're so excited about for the future, or is there something else?
So, Omar and I are still very involved with each other with regard to, doing personal coaching. But what I've learned is through another partner of mine, her name's Cicely Simpson, we've learned about this need for leadership through the feedback of people in our community. We had started off as a career coaching company where we were helping people try to navigate corporate structure, navigate, how to advance themselves in their career. And what we found was there was a greater need for leadership because these people were being placed in positions where they were responsible for a team, for a project, and they had no basis for what they could do. We also saw people in the C-suites, in upper management, right, broad brushing everybody down the line about, these kids are not committed, this whatever it was. And so what we learned was that we needed to create a space where we could train the next generation of leaders. And so we created what's called the 21st Century Leadership Institute, which is 21stcenturyleaders.today. That's our landing page. It explains exactly what we do. But people aren't looking for a person. They're not looking for Dave. They're not looking for Cicely. They're not looking for Alex. They're looking for an entity that can bring in resources from various places to help meet you where you're at and where your needs are. And so that's what I'm really excited about because it has courses that you can take just like you would take on Lightspeed or Kajabi. It has that community like a private Facebook group would be, although we put it over on the Circle platform so you wouldn't have those Facebook distractions when it's time for you to focus in on the mastermind. It has we do regular office hours for Q&As, the whole 9 yards. It provides that ability that if you apply yourself, even the smallest, you're going to get a return. And that's really what I'm excited about. Will it always be called the 21st Century Leadership Institute? I doubt it, because it's like, Google is Alphabet, Facebook is Meta. It doesn't matter what the name is, as long as you're reaching the people and solving the problems that they have.
Yeah.
5 years from now, the 21st Century Leadership might be the 21st Century Leadership and Relationship Building Institute. You just never know. That's the beauty of this world. We're so fast right now, and we pivot left and right. It's just like, oh, what do we do? How do we do? How do I train somebody into being a better remote worker, to be more engaging? What is the acceptable wait time between the time I send you a message on our team, on our Microsoft Teams, for you to respond to me during business hours? All these tools and strategies. I love letting the market dictate what needs to be done, and then realizing I have a way to fill that gap. It's really exciting.
I really like focusing on that, because like I've gotten great feedback from building these episodes for the podcast and the podcast brand, because the market's told me so.
Right.
So, like when every time I've had an interview, it might not get like thousands of listens, but I get DM'd all the time, or emails from these other PR agencies that have guests. So I know it's working, but it takes a long time, right? But
right. Well, and there's I think Omar pulled the numbers one time. It's like there's an insane number of podcasts out there, right? It's like in the tens of millions now.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But less than 1% do more than 10 episodes.
Man.
So even just by doing the number of episodes you've done, you have elevated yourself beyond the top 99% of all other podcasts.
Yeah.
Now we all get weary and well-doing. Let's be honest. We get tired of doing the interviews. We get tired of editing the audio and making the thing. But at the end of the day, I see, at least my podcast, keep this in mind, and I'm sure you see the same thing. It's content creation and value creation.
Yeah.
So there may be like a little snippet that comes out of our discussion today that will radically impact somebody. And you may strip it out into a reel or a TikTok, or you may not. It may come in the long form version. But until we have these interviews, unless we do these podcasts, the opportunity to provide that insight is not there. I mean, you can have every solution up here between your ears, but if you don't ever share it with anybody, what's the point?
Never know.
And at least, so at least this gives us the opportunity to, and I'll kind of frame it like this: podcasters are world changers. Okay, they just literally are. But it's not that they're changing the world in its entirety. They're changing the world for a listener. Yeah, that listener may grab a hold of one thing, and it may change their world.
Yeah,
and that is what makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to make the house note with the revenue produced off the podcast. But you know what? Even if it doesn't, if somebody can be impacted by something they heard or saw from an interview in a podcast, then that makes it worth it.
Yeah, and I've had a few of those messages where like, oh, don't stop making these. I'm listening to all of them. Like that's what keeps me going, right? When I'm like, oh man, like I'm bagged this week. I don't know if I have it in me, but then you get those messages, and then they keep you going. It keeps the engine revving. So yeah. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the MindCep Podcast again, David. Absolute pleasure. And where can our listeners find you? Where are you most active on right now? And then how can they buy your book?
Okay, so a couple things. Number one, it's on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can go to davidaspecht.com and order it straight from there. In fact, there's a nice little link on there. I think it's /signed, where I'll actually send you a copy of my book signed for the same price you'd pay on Amazon. Most active social media, Facebook, David A. Specht, Instagram, David A. Specht, and like I said, LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I have a weekly blog. You can subscribe to that weekly blog, and it'll show up in your inbox. I also call that Keep This in Mind. That's a whole nother story, but the podcast is called Keep This in Mind. We're in our 4th season. Hard to believe that. and like you and I talked about beforehand, there may be some breaks along the way, but it will never go away.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And right now I'm kind of in a little bit of a slow down thing with some other things personally going on. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to reach out, I'm here for you to reach out to. I answer every DM that somebody sends me. I'm happy to speak before a group. Again, my goal is to help individuals, leaders, and organizations do leadership better. Again, go to the 21st Century Leadership today. Gosh, I'm still trying to get the URL down, but go there to look exactly what we do. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'll take a phrase from I forget the guy's name, but if you ever watch the show New Amsterdam,
oh yeah,
he would the hospital administrator would always walk into a group with, "How can I help?" Yeah. That is my mantra for this year. How can I help?
How can I help? Love it. Right on. Have a great rest of your weekend, Dave. And it was an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast again.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.